Hello, welcome back everyone. Welcome to episode 3. Today we're gonna talk about Genesis 1 verse 3, which says, "And God said, let there be light, and there was light. Vayomer Elohim, Yehi Or, Va Yehi Or." So this third verse of Genesis introduces the first spoken act of creation. So in a literal reading, this describes how the universe was illuminated at the beginning of time. The Zohar, the seminal text of the Jewish mysticism, sees this far beyond a physical event, unveiling profound spiritual dynamics at work. Drawing upon the cosmic interplay of the Sephirot, the concept of Or Haganuz, which means the hidden or primordial light, and the divine names. The Zohar views this verse as an exposition on how the infinite light, Ein Sof, begins to manifest in creation. So today we're gonna take a look at expansive examination of the key themes and insights the Zohar brings to bear on this Genesis 1 verse 3. So the first one we have Vayomer Elohim, the creative power of speech. The verse begins with "and God said," which underscores the divine word as the instrument of creation. In the Zohar, speech is not simply a metaphor. It is an active, formative principle that shapes reality. Speech as emanation. The Zohar often links speech, dibur, to Malkuth, the 10th Sephirah, because Malkuth is where the divine potential becomes expressed outwardly. By speaking, the divine being channels infinite light through the upper Sephirot into verbal articulation. The name Elohim, this name highlights a judgment or limiting aspect of the divine, associated with the constraining force that allows for distinct creation. Paradoxically, the creation of light, which seems expansive, comes through the name that signifies boundary and definition. According to the Zohar, if infinite light poured forth without constraint, it would overwhelm finite reality. The name Elohim ensures that the light enters the universe in a measured, sustainable way. So here we have God said versus God taught. The verse does not say, "and God taught," but rather, "and God said." The Zohar interprets this to mean that divine speech is the threshold at which the hidden realms of Hokmah, or wisdom, and Binah, understanding, become tangible in the lower worlds. The movement from thought to speech is a microcosm of the larger process from concealment to revelation. And then we have Yehi Or, let there be light, the emergence of the primordial light. The crux of Genesis 1 verse 3 is the command or pronouncement, Yehi Or, let there be light, far from describing mere physical luminosity. The Zohar discerns in these words the appearance of Or Haganus, the primordial or hidden light. So, what is the primordial light? Beyond physical illumination, the Zohar and other Kabbalistic works emphasize that this first light is not the light of the sun, moon, or stars, which are created only on the fourth day. Rather, it is a supernal light, a spiritual radiance that infuses the cosmos with divine consciousness. Hidden for the righteous. Later, Rabbinic and Kabbalistic tradition holds that God concealed this original light, safeguarding it for the righteous in the world to come. The Zohar echoes this idea, interpreting Yehi Or as the unveiling of a supreme brilliance that was soon hidden again, accessible only to those who attain a purified vision. Transcendent yet immanent. The phrase, "let there be light," signals an act of revelation. Until this moment, the universe was overshadowed by tohu vabohu, formlessness and void, from the previous verse that we had, and chosech, which is darkness. Now, an ordered revelation emerges. First, we have transcendent. The light emanates from the higher source, the Ein Sof, yet remains distinct so that creation can exist. Second, we have immanent. Despite its lofty origin, this light permeates the cosmos, ensuring it animates and vitalizes all that comes into being. Cosmic and personal illumination. The Zohar applies this notion of light to both the macrocosm and the microcosm of the individual soul. Here on the macrocosm, we can see on a cosmic scale, Yehi Or heralds the dawn of divine awareness in the created universe. It is the gateway to all subsequent acts of creation. And on the microcosm side, on the level of personal spirituality, each person can experience moments of Yehi Or. This comes as insights of clarity, awareness, and an inner spark of the divine. Then we have Vayehi Or, and there was light, the immediate fulfillment. The verse concludes with Vayehi Or, and there was light. The Zohar remarks that the verse repeats the word light, or to indicate multiple aspects. And then the first we have the speed of fulfillment. Unlike human speech, which can fail to translate into action, God's word instantly brings about its intended result. The Zohar highlights this as the power of the divine word. No delay exists between decree and manifestation. Second, we have spiritual and physical dimensions. Let there be light indicates the command, while and there was light marks its arrival into accessible, manifest reality. The double mention of light can allude to the first one we have upper light, which is the hidden supernal radiance within the higher Sephirot. And second, we have the lower light, the portion that descended or manifested, influencing the lower worlds and eventually becoming part of the physical cosmos. And we can look at this from the Sephirotic interplay. Some commentaries in the Zohar parse the difference between Yehi-Or and Vayehi-Or by aligning them with different Sephirot. Yehi-Or might be associated with Hesed, the initial outflowing of benevolent energy, whereas Vayehi-Or can be tied to Malkuth, which receives and actualizes that flow in the lower realms. And then we have the nature of this first light, Or Haganus, which means in English, the hidden light. A prominent theme in Zoharic and later Kabbalistic exegesis is that the light of day one is not the ordinary light we see, but rather a supernal or transcendental light. The first one is hidden in the void. After revealing this powerful radiance, the divine hid it away, lest the unrefined aspects of creation misuse it. And then second, we have reserved for righteousness. The Talmud teaches that this light was set aside for the Tzadikim, or in English means the righteous in the future. The Zohar elaborates that every righteous deed, every mitzvah, draws down a spark of that hidden light into our present world. And then we have differentiation from the light of the luminaries. Physical luminaries, like the sun, moon, and stars, come into being later in the six-day creation narrative. The Zohar ponders, why create light twice? Because the first light is an all-encompassing spiritual essence, while the second set of lights, which is in day 4, are celestial bodies designated to regulate time and seasons in the physical domain. The Zohar also ponders the eternal versus temporal. The original Yehi-Or inaugurates an eternal principle, divine awareness that transcends the space-time continuum. The lights of day on day 4 operate within space-time, measuring days, years, and cycles. And then we're gonna linking the let there be light to the previous verses, which we talked about on our previous episode. So the continuity with the Genesis 1 verse 1 and 2. So from potential chaos to divine illumination. In Genesis 1 verse 1, we have the cosmic statement of creation, Bereshit bara Elohim, and in Genesis 1 verse 2, the condition of Tohu, Vavohu, and darkness. The Zohar sees these verses as describing potential, the raw material of reality waiting for divine articulation. And the role of the Ruach Elohim, verse 1, describes the Spirit of God hovering the waters, an act of preparation. So we had that on chapter 1 verse 2, that Yehi-Or is the manifestation, the next stage in which the latent is transformed into revealed. And the divine names and the attributes. In the immediate context, the name Elohim consistently appears. The Zohar emphasizes that 1. God's self-concealment. The name Elohim is associated with din, or judgment in English, and hiding. Even though light is being created, the energy is measured and clothed in a manner that creation can endure. The Zohar also emphasizes that there's multiplicity within oneness. Elohim, in its Hebrew grammar, has a plural form but denotes the one God. This underscores the complex interplay of Sephirot, the 10 emanations, revealing the single divine essence in a multifaceted way. So here we have a little Sephirotic drama. The Zohar is replete with references to the 10 Sephirot as aspects or channels of divine energy. In Genesis 1 verse 3, we can see several Sephirot at work. First we have Chokmah, wisdom, often called Reshit, the beginning, the prime impetus that gives rise to all further emanations. The command, "Let there be," hints at the flash of insight that envisions creation. And the second Sephirot, we have Binah, understanding, the structuring or conceptual dimension that clarifies and channels the initial spark of Chokmah. Third one, we have Hesed, which in English means kindness. Here we have the outpouring energy of creation, enabling light to flow. Then we have Geburah, might, the constraining power correlated with Elohim, ensuring that the infinite light is filtered. Next we have Tiferet, beauty, the harmonizing principle often linked to God's voice or speech, bridging the upper Sephirot with the lower. Last we have Malkuth, kingdom, the realm of manifestation, which actually speaks the cosmic word into reality and receives the resulting light. So here we can see Yehi-Or can be seen as the harmonized expression of these attributes, each playing a role in unveiling the first act of tangible creation. The Zohar on the inner meaning of light and darkness. Throughout the Zohar, light and darkness are more than physical phenomena. They serve as spiritual metaphors for revelation and concealment. Darkness as precursor to light. The Zohar frequently highlights the principle, there is no light except that which emerges from darkness. This concept emerges clearly in Genesis 1 verse 3, following the description of darkness from chapter 1 verse 2. In the spiritual life of a person, moments of confusion or concealment often precede breakthroughs of clarity and insight. We also have two kinds of darkness. First, the darkness of absence, a deficiency or void, like ignorance. Second, we have the darkness of concealed light, where a higher form of illumination is deliberately hidden, awaiting the right conditions to be revealed. So in Genesis 1 verse 2 and 3 transitions from the second kind of darkness to an explicit revelation of divine light. Next, we have union of masculine and feminine principles. The Zohar frequently casts the creation story as a mystical union between masculine and feminine aspects of divinity. Holy One, blessed be He, which is the masculine aspect, often associated with Tiferet or the upper Sephirot, representing creative outflow. And then we have Shekinah, which is the feminine aspect, associated with Malkuth, the divine presence that receives and manifests the outflow in the lower realms. So in verse 3, God said is a masculine expression. Let there be light signals a loving bestowal into the cosmic womb. The light is the essence of what the Shekinah receives and later radiates to the worlds. This dynamic interplays ensures creation isn't just mechanical, but relational, a communion of divine attributes that bring forth reality. Human spiritual development, let there be light within. Zoharic teachings consistently seek to transform the biblical narrative into a guide for spiritual life. The phrase Yehi Or resonates in the soul. The first one, which is awakening within. Each person has inner darkness, personal chaos, or lack of clarity. The call, let there be light, can be understood as God's continuous invitation to awaken within us a spark of wisdom, compassion, and divine awareness. The second one that resonates in the soul is creative speech. Just as God said and created light, the Zohar teaches that our own speech and intentions can shape our personal reality. The more aligned we are with divine truth, the more our words carry healing and creative power. The last one that resonates in the soul is hidden light in good deeds. Every mitzvah or righteous act releases a bit of that hidden primordial light into our world, making the spiritual luminous even in mundane settings. This aligns with the Talmudic notion that the Or Haganus is hidden away for the righteous. By acting righteously, we access glimmers of that concealed radiance. So here we have multiple interpretations of let there be light. One hallmark of the Zohar is its multi-layered interpretive method. The Pardes approach, Peshat, Remes, Derash, and Sot. For Genesis 1 verse 3, the Zohar yields numerous, often simultaneous readings. First, Peshat, or in English means literal, a historical creation of physical light, although not yet the luminaries of day 4. Second, we have Remes, or in English, allegorical or hinted meaning. a symbolic representation of divine wisdom shining into the cosmos. Third, we have Derash, or in English, homiletical, is a moral lesson, light as goodness, darkness as moral confusion. And last, we have Sot, or in English means secret, profound mystical truths about Orhaganus, the Sephiroth, and the interplay of masculine and feminine energies in the Godhead. The Zohar thrives in the Sot dimension, yet it does not negate or deny the other levels. Instead, it shows how they harmonize into a cosmic tapestry. So here we have the resonances in later Kabbalah and Chassidut. Subsequent Kabbalistic masters like the Arizal in the 16th century and the Chassidic teachers like the Baal Shem Tov on the 18th century draw heavily on the Zohar's reading of Genesis 1 verse 3. From Arizal, we have elaborates on the concept of Tzimtzum, which is divine contraction, and the light of day one as an infinitely subtle illumination that shaped the entire vessel of creation. And from Chassidut explores the idea that each Jew, each human soul can recreate Yehi Or on a daily basis by bringing spiritual insight and warmth into the world through Torah study, prayer, and acts of kindness. In this way, the Zohar interpretation remains dynamically alive, not a relic of the past, but a guiding principle for spiritual seekers throughout the generations. So we're gonna summarize and contemplate dimensions. So in summary, Genesis 1 verse 3 is the Zohar's grand stage for the birth of light, an event that is simultaneously cosmic and internal. First, we have divine speech, Vayomer Elohim, spotlights God's creative word, transmitted through the Sephirah Malkuth, granting reality, form, and substance. Next, we have measured revelation, because the name Elohim, the attribute of judgment, is used. The light is limited to avoid annihilating finite creation. Next, we have primordial versus physical light. The first light is supernal, a spiritual radiance distinct from the later created sun and stars. It is partially hidden after its creation, reserved for righteous deeds and ultimate redemption. Next, we have union of opposites. Yehi Or reveals how expansive mercy, which is light, and constrictive judgment, Elohim, must unite to birth the cosmos in balance. Last one, we have personal transformation. Spiritually, each soul is invited to echo "Let there be light" in moments of darkness, transforming confusion into clarity, negativity into illumination. So taken as a whole, the Zohar's perspective underscores that the phrase "let there be light" is not a single concluded moment in the distant past. Rather, it is a timeless formula for divine revelation, one that continually pulses through creation, awakening hearts and minds to the mystery and majesty of the infinite. So through this lens, studying Genesis 1 verse 3 becomes an act of participation in the ongoing process of enlightenment, an invitation to step ever more deeply into the hidden radiance that sustains all things. Thank you, everyone. Be blessed, and I will see you on the next episode.